There you go. Okay, they asked me to say an opening prayer for us. Then one of the students will take it from there. Heavenly Father, Creator and Savior, I come to you today very thankful for all that you do for us, all that you've given us. Heavenly Father, I ask that you continue to bless us. Bless us with good healing, health, love and compassion and good directions. Heavenly Father, reach out to those in need of your healing and helping hand. Guide us through this life. Help us walk this Mother Earth that you've given us in a good way. Again, Heavenly Father, thank you for all that you do for us. Bless everybody here, everybody listening. Amen.
Yat shik do shid ne she keli bige yinishe aro ki ani nishle ki flechini bashchin setish gizni dashe lizatlana dashanale aro ki lana dashanigi aro toni khani de ise nasha kutao astana nishle. Good evening, family and friends. My name is Caleb Begay. I am of the Towering House clan, born for Red House clan. My maternal grandfather is of the Rock Gap clan, and my paternal grandfather is of the Many Goats clan. I reside in Flagstaff, Arizona, but I come from Talani Lake, Arizona. This is my second year here attending LPTC, and I play for the women's basketball team. My classmates and I would like to welcome you to the Winnebago Tribal Candidate Forum today.
I'm Greg Grant from Mesa, Nebraska, Omaha Tribe, Nebraska. Yeah.
I'm Lindsay Harris. I'm from the Northern Arapaho Tribe. I'm from Riverton, Wyoming, and I also play on the women's basketball team.
Hochjana Piwina. Maikite Raja Heron Hargreaves ga hingaide, egi hochunk Raja wirage piwinga hingaide na. Wakjaki hiki karach, hijan wa wajena, pinagigi. During the forum, the students will ask 3 questions. Each candidate will have the opportunity to answer the question. A microphone will be passed to each of you. You have to use the microphone in order for the audio to work on our live stream. And the rules for the forum are as follows. No talking or heckling while the candidates are talking. Be respectful. No foul language. 1 minute time limit to ask a question. And the candidates have 3 minutes to answer each question. Thank you.
Our Contemporary Native American Issues class thought of 3 questions we'd like to ask. And the first one is, the Cheyenne River Sioux and the Standing Rock tribe banished meth dealers on their reservations and published names of meth-related crimes. What is your stance on harsher punishments for drug-related crimes in Winnebago?
This was a similar question that was asked to us in a previous forum like this. I believe it was actually last year. And I have to say the same thing. It's going to be hard to solve the meth problem in the 3 minutes that we have here to discuss this. But the decision that was made by other tribes to harshen the punishments, I guess, as it was put forward in the question for us, is something that can be used here. But however, I feel there's a more effective manner with which to deal with this, and that is education. I said this last year, and I'm going to reiterate that point this year again, is that when we unleash the power of education, we unleash our ability to deal with any problem that we have effectively. I do not feel that currently we are using education to the best of our abilities, meaning that we all understand what the problem is, but we don't necessarily understand the depth and to which extent it is actually affecting all of us. I'm sure that everyone here in this in this auditorium and that may be watching is probably touched by this epidemic in some way, and I'm certainly no different than any of those. But until we begin to use education in a more proactive way, meaning that we not just tell people that there is a problem, but show them how to get out of it, how to get through it, how to deal with it, not much is going to change, and people are going to be pretty much banished, to use that phrase, to be stuck in those situations. A situation that I brought up last year, which still fits today, is if you truly want this situation to change through education, you have to tell the younger generations what this is about and how you want these things to change, and then also empower them with the abilities to make effective changes in their own lives, despite the fact that they may be going home to this situation. You have children, and we have children in this scenario, but you're not empowering them with any ability to actually do anything about it. Instead, you're leaving them as victims. Now, sure, there does have to be a certain level of crime and punishment, and I'm not saying that we shouldn't do that at all, but I feel it's more effective for us to use education as the first weapon of choice.
Hello.
Good, good evening. My name is Darla LaPointe. Asked has come up previously when I was on council before, and I think the avenue that we tried to take was trying to get DD and the plan was specifically focus on our tribal members, and that didn't happen. The Alvin Mayor office took control of the DDU, and there was no way that we could use that to go about the Alvin municipal. For myself, currently I'm teaching second grade, and I see the effects that that has on the children, and it's really hurtful. You know, I had one of my students come up to me this summer, and she gave me a hug, and she said, "Teacher, I lost my parents, I lost my mom, I lost my dad." And I was like, "What do you mean you lost them?" And she just said, "I lost them." And come to find out, you know, that was her loss. And it's really hurtful to see our children hurt like that, to see them crying. And she does it during the school day. She feels like she misses her mom, she misses her dad. She'll cry. And there's nothing that I can do to help her. So in that piece in our community, we need to try to take control of it and try to help our younger generation, because they're the ones that and they're the ones that are going to have the outcome the things that the parents are doing now. So in order for any change to happen, myself, I would look at the statutes that are in place. They are so outdated that they need to be addressed and they need to be updated, not just in this area, in all areas. So I guess that would be my route, is to look at the statutes and try to make it more fair to benefit our younger generation, and put more penalties on abusers, banishing them. I'm not sure if that's the word that I would want to use because of the children that will probably end up being left on reservation if they can't take the chance.
I believe the drug problem, all drug problem, and relies on our judicial system with our courts and our law enforcement. And right now we are lacking law enforcement, police officers, boots on the ground to be out there enforcing the laws and stuff. And I would not be for banishment of our tribal members. Maybe non-tribal members and non-Indians I would be. Thanks.
Good afternoon, evening. My thoughts on this would be, I wouldn't want to banish them. Myself, I would rather see them get the help that they need, because a lot of times they are related somehow, some way to us. We have programs here that's supposed to be helping. I'd like to see more outreach to these members, and work with the judicial system, because it seems like the court's not following through. When they go to court, they just, pay a fine and there you go. There was one just a few days ago where that happened, and there was nothing done for them. We have these programs here, the alcohol program, that should be stepping in and working with these families and helping them figure out, why are they doing this? What is your reason? There's a reasoning for everything. Just like with this alcohol, same thing. They're drinking for a reason. What is it? Find the bottom line to what's causing this problem for them to want to be not in the right mind, but have, be somewhere else. There's a reason for that. Something might have happened to them, maybe trauma. Who knows? But I wouldn't like to see them being alienated, but they need a help, support from the community. How can I help you? And then, like Darla was saying, the families are really affected by this all, and the family themselves, they need that help too. So I would just like to see more of that support in judicial system, law enforcement. A lot of times it is reported, but it seems like nothing is done. We have a lot of traffic going down to the river at this all the time here lately. It's different license plates, different vehicles, all hours. There's a lot of activity that's going on like this that's being reported, but yet nothing is done about it. And like Coley said, is because of the lack of the officers or whatever. So that's just my take on it. Thank you.
Good evening, relatives. My name is John Snowball, a lifelong resident. Just to understand the question clearly, it was about meth and banishment. Okay, actually, this is one of my platforms, is law enforcement. I've been in law enforcement for 5 years now, and I've gained a lot of perspective in that time. And when I was younger, my dad told me, he said, "You should be a cop." And I was like, no way, I don't want to be no cop. Cops deal with guys on their worst day. It's usually their worst day when they have to deal with you. And, it come around where I was looking for an opportunity to provide for my family and to serve my people. And I came into law enforcement. And I started at the casino police. And I seen a lot of the meth out there. And I dealt with a lot of it. And there's 7 officers out there. Casino police, and right now I direct wildlife and parks. We have 5 conservation officers. It's all the same certification through the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center, and so we look at the police department in Winnebago. It's BIA, and BIA has some of its faults. Everything has its faults, And BIA is, because it manages on a regional level, Winnebago is kind of the bright spot in that region. And so a lot of the resources ain't going to come to Winnebago. I know there's a criminal investigator, but he doesn't have a lot of time. He's kind of out somewhere else within the region. So what I think is we need to at least have 2 detectives, and they need to be tribal, so they can focus on what's going on in this community. Because it is out here, meth is here, heroin, it's already here. And if we don't call out its name and call it our enemy, nothing's gonna happen. So, I feel really strongly about that. These communities, it's happening all the time. Last week there was a sexual assault. There's burglaries. Everybody knows there's burglaries going on. And as far as banishment, let's discuss it. I'm not going to say yes or no to that. Well, let's discuss it. Maybe first offense, meth, we can do a banishment for 6 months. Second offense, 3 years. If it's third offense, maybe it's lifetime. But let's discuss it and let's talk about it. And really have them hard discussions. And really beef up our law enforcement. If we don't do that, we can't really build those cases, because our officers now, they're just covering their shifts, and sometimes they're 12-hour shifts and 5 days in a row. So if we don't have them detectives really building them cases, following up, finding out them houses, and also housing needs to step up, because a lot of these times, these issues are happening in the housing houses. Thank you.
What was the question? Being the chairman of the Drug and Alcohol Advisory Board, we see everything that comes out, whether it's alcohol, meth, heroin, whatever it might be. We see that the children affected. There's a lot of people that slip through the cracks, a lot of children that slip through the cracks. They're lost in the system, as it's said. And so we see people getting kicked out of their houses because their house or apartment comes up hot with meth. A lot of times it's elders, and then with these households, there's more than one family per household. And so a lot of people pay for that one individual, or those few individuals, the children or the grandchildren that are doing that. And so there's a big difference between a drug user and a drug seller. And me personally, if we don't take a stand against this, it's going to always be here. We're not going to make a difference. There are so many angles we're trying to hit this from, starting with our youth, doing youth programs, youth training, education, to remind them of that where they come from. They have families, they have clans, they have a tribe. And so I can understand what Standing Rock is doing. We've seen a lot of that up there during camp, during Standing Rock, and it's only stayed up there with them. And so with that, it's also coming down here to our people. And so with banishment, like I say, there's a difference between a user and a seller. If you're a seller, I believe in banishment. Let that be to whatever it is, forever, however long, we can talk about that. But I do believe in that if you're a seller. But if you're a user, then I believe there's hope for you to be turned around to become a good citizen of our people again. And so with that, it is possible. And right now, we're getting our 3-quarter house done. But as we're trying to build a new halfway house, we have to get a transitional house. That's what we're building now. Once we get that new transitional house finished and to start the building, the destruction and the building of the new halfway house and get that finished, the transitional house will then become the 3-quarter house. And so only thing we have left to tackle is the DDU. That's the only thing left in our hospital for the IHS that has control of. So once we do that, we'll be the only tribe in Indian country to be all doing everything on our own without any outside entity money, but mainly grassroots. A lot of our outreach is grassroots operated and oriented and started from there. And so with that's kind of my take on the banishment on drugs and alcohol. So we're just trying to streamline that right now to recover our people with that chance still there. So I guess my time is up. So thank you.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Tony Wood. This question's kind of the most serious question right off the bat tonight. I actually been thinking about this question quite a bit because we all have family. I have direct family that have been involved with meth, disability. And I'm going to plagiarize this guy. I just watched this video just recently, and it said, the opposite of addiction is not sobriety, it's connection. And all of us, families, we're connected. And I think that in terms of the users, I said, what we need to do is actually kind of come together a little bit further, like get our family units to the point where we invite everybody in, you know, because without that family connection, they're going to continue, you know. There's going to continue to be drug abuse, children hurt, you know, families separating, you know, and I don't know what the answer to this is, especially in 3 minutes. The United States, Nebraska, everybody's dealing with the meth issue, but what we have over all of those is we're a sovereign nation, and we can connect ourselves. In fact, right now, my companion's out in Washington, D.C., talking about family group decision making. It's from a tribe, the Maori tribe, and it's been really successful for them. And I think that if we implement something, put a plan together, I think we can come up with our own solutions. Thank you.
The second question is, the Winnebago tribe was approved to grow hemp in July. What is your thoughts on branching off in the medical marijuana industry? The Winnebago tribe was approved to grow hemp in July. What is your thoughts on branching off in the medical marijuana industry?
There's great profits from hemp products that can be made. Even helps the human body in ways. It is very profitable. Hopefully that will be profitable for us, the tribe, all of you. As for medical marijuana, I would have to think about that a lot more, but I do know it does help people who are in serious pain. And it would have to take a lot of thought in and what the community wants and what they feel too, how they would want to go about the medical marijuana. Thanks.
All right. Here's what's going on with the medical marijuana. That we've been, as a tribe, as a people, we've been doing a lot of things to go different ways to grow our tribal finances and to do things, help pioneer things throughout Indian country. And there's other tribes out there doing what we're trying to do. And we're trying to do what other tribes are trying to do, or what they're doing. And so it's not only, you know, there's this thing that people think of THC and marijuana and weed and shit, stuff like that. And so what we're trying to do is we're trying to take this in a new direction for our tribal finances to be doing something new. You know, marijuana is an old medicine from way back before 1492, before the colonizers came, whether it was for pain, after a battles, whatever it might have been, to heal our people. Just one of many medicines that the Maikute, they think it's bad. They say it's bad. They tell us it's bad. But we knew it was here for a long time before they got here. And so with that we're trying to take the tribe, not we, but the council, the current council. But the council is trying to take our people in a good way to do something for us, to get us new finances, new monies. Because there's so many things that can be done with it. Building walls, clothes, fabrics, what is that? BDC oil, TBC, some kind of CBD oil, and I mean that smoke in it is just the very beginning of whatever people are scared of. And you know, between alcohol and meth, I would actually prefer marijuana over either one of those as far as that goes. And so with that, I really hope that we can all keep an open mind on this, because we can only benefit from it. And if it falls through, it falls through. We tried it. And then we're going to have to try something else next. But it's all to benefit our people one way or another. But right now, it's still in the test phases. We're trying to connect the dots. And so it's going to be about 3 years before we see any profit out of that. And so I hope it really works for us, for our people, for our next generations, to be a better tomorrow, so they can have something that we have today. Thank you.
So I attended the Frank Lemire Presidential Forum, and Frank White came up to me and he asked me, he was like, "John, you want to go ask a question, go up on a panel?" And I thought he was teasing. To this day, I don't know if he's teasing or if he's serious. But my wife said, "You should have went. You would have had a good question." So I kind of thought about it, and I thought, what would I ask? And one of the things that I always thought about is, you know, they gave us gaming. I know gaming was provided to us to help our community, you know, with funds. And that advantage is going away slowly. And I was thinking, well, what's the next thing? You know, what's the next thing that can help our community? And this hemp and this, it's a new industry, and it's a proven industry in other states. And you know, I would be in support of supporting any new avenues of bringing in funds for our tribe to fund the core things, the education, the health care, the children, you know. And you know, our people ain't too far off. We're not too far off from having nothing. So our families, you know, we're barely starting to stand on our own 2 feet. So we need to be patient with each other, you know, be patient with all our people, because our young adults, we don't even have the work ethic. You know, sometimes we'll come out and we'll try to get a job, and we don't have that work ethic, so we'll lose that job, and we'll lose that job at the casino, or we'll lose that job here. You know, I was that way until I was 30 years old. I went to jail for 45 days, and when I came out, I was a new man, and I had a drive to say that I'm going to do anything I can, everything. I'm going to get in where I can stay in, and I'm going to dig in. And you know, it's brought me here today. You know, I was a director of security at the casino. I'm wildlife parks director. I'm on a board of the directors for a nationally chartered organization. So looking at all that, you know, we got to look at the big picture. You know, not just, is it this? You know, maybe the spirits told us to leave that alone. That's some of our teachings, and so it's all got to be discussed. But of course, let's discuss it and let's have them conversations, and really sit down and all talk. And we all need to talk. You know, we can't just sit here and say nothing, because that's why we came up here, to talk and express our thoughts and work together. So those are just some of my thoughts on that. Thank you.
Sorry, darling. question of medical marijuana. You know, everybody knows recently I lost my uncle to this. And we had talked about if he had more time, you know, maybe this would be something that would alleviate his pain. We have veterans in town. My dad's a veteran. Maybe this is something that could actually alleviate his PTSD. You know, we have a lot of people in town with pain management issues. You know, I think that going down that path, we could be a pioneer in Nebraska, but we have to wait for Nebraska to actually approve it. So that's one of the things about, I don't know if it's going to happen anytime soon, but we should at least be preparing for that. We have a hospital over there. Maybe research and study is an avenue that we should pursue. But I'm in support of medical marijuana. So, thank you.
The last time I was on council, I attended a conference in Denver, Colorado on medical marijuana, and there it is legal, and so you would just see people walking around smoking in the conference. They were handing these around, and I remember sitting there, and I really didn't want to touch it, and you know, because here it is illegal, and so it's just being in that environment and coming, you know, and thinking about my environment where I live, and it's really different. But one of the things that I got to experience was I went to Flandreau, and Flandreau, they started setting up this process of making marijuana legal on the reservation. So they held a conference, and I went, and they invested, I think it was $750,000. They created an environment. They got the plants. They had the people there. They was getting it all ready to go, and the state of Nebraska and the feds told them that, you know, they wanted to know where they got their seed, and Flandreau would not give that up. So the feds were going to go in and take it, and before they could, Flandreau burned everything. But what they showed us was the layout of how to get this going, and they did compare it to gaming. The way they started setting up theirs was with the commission to set up, you know, the laws, the requirements, what the commission would be looking for, and what was legal and what would be illegal. And I'm just talking like percentages and I guess what the marijuana consisted of and its potency. Things like that. They had it all laid out before they even started the process, and that would be something that we would have to consider. Medical marijuana, I am most definitely interested in and finding more about, and I would be supportive for that. I've seen a lot of people suffer, and I know when Iowa started talking about being a medicinal state, we did find out when I was on council previously that they were going to allow, I think it was 4 growers and 2 sellers, and I really wanted to try on the Iowa side to get that going, and it didn't happen that way. There wasn't enough support to even start looking into it at that time. So with that, like I said, I'm most definitely in favor of medicinal and, you know, selling it, whether it's at our hospital, you know, on our reservation in Iowa, you know, taking that step forward and starting that process of the discussion of setting up a commission, setting up and taking all the right steps so that everything is understandable and legal. Thank you.
I guess first off, to answer the question outright, I support what we would get ourselves into, so to speak, in relation to what we would need to bring forward with medical marijuana in its various forms and uses. But there's something a little bit different that I wanted to point out since we're at the end of this question, and this is a little bit of feedback for you as students. When you ask these questions, you're pretty much going to get uniform answers from the candidates, and what you saw here But let's take it a little bit farther and start putting together the idea. When we have to look at who we're voting for and who we're electing, don't just look at, do you support the use of medical marijuana? And that's a good question. But look, who can get it done? Who has the ability to make that happen? Because that's really the question that you have to be asking. So when we get into this, and as we move forward, yes, I do support the implementation, the experimentation on how we're going to be involved with it as a tribe. But what I'm interested in is how are we going to get it done? Because as what Darla said, this was an idea that was brought forward to the council during the special election where I sat in 2015. And at that time, the support for it, not just in the tribal membership, but around the table was extremely soft, and that was primarily due to the nefarious reputation that marijuana has. But because hemp and its various uses are so wide, so varied, so diverse, I think it took a little bit of time for people to understand it was a lot more than just somebody smoking and getting high, that there were a lot of other things that we would be possible and we were capable of doing, but we had to get people to understand it was more than just that nefarious reputation that it traditionally has. But getting back to the main point, how are we going to bring this forward when we have to have people that have the understanding of how to build a business, how to create the opportunity, how to establish the regulations, and how to make sure that it is going to work in a long-term and long-range way? Those are the things that I would ask you guys to look at in return, because it's easy for me to say, yes, I support it, but at the same time, let's talk about how we're going to get it done with real answers. Thank you.
Okay, my thoughts on it. I'm for any investments out there that's going to be beneficial to the tribe. But with this hemp and the medicinal use of it, the state can say, yes, you can do it. But the federal, who we're still under, says no. So right there, it'll tell you that you're going to run into problems. So this needs to be looked at before you actually put a seed in that ground. All these things need to be researched and make sure we're going by the proper channels and how to do that. So I see that as a red flag already. And we have attorneys, lawyers, who should have already checked into this. So I would just say that I would check into this and find out for sure if it can be done. And if it can be done, then we'll pursue it and make it a reality for our tribe, because we do need the money and investments to help our people out. So that's my take. Thank you.
Third question. As you know, lack of childcare is a barrier to success. Are you willing to expand Educare or explore funding for a second daycare?
Again, this is kind of part of one of my platforms. One of the big things that I really care about is employment. And I've been supervising and managing for 5 years now. And I really see how important it is for somebody to have a high quality life outside of work and to be able to work. A lot of the time, our tribal members, our community members, it doesn't make sense for them to get a job, because these jobs, they can't support childcare. They can't support fuel. They can't support a car, a place to live, food. I mean, You could spend $800 to $1,000 a month on food. And so these jobs really can't support it. You know, it makes more sense to utilize all the assistance, you know, the tribal assistance, the state assistance, the federal assistance. It makes more sense to do all that. And if you do all that, you can have all them things. So if we want our people, if we really want to develop our working class, we need to make a way. And we need to figure out how we're going to pay a living wage to our tribal members, and figure out what a living wage is. You know, it's probably somewhere around $20 an hour for somebody to work and be able to pay for childcare and be able to have a car and a place to live and be a homeowner. And, you know, it goes back to what I said, we're not too far off from having nothing. You know, when I grew up, my dad and all their siblings, we all lived together. That's how a lot of families were. You know, it was a lot of adults, you know, and we didn't have a room. We all slept in the living room. And a lot of families are like that. And they're still like that today. So we need to be really patient with our people, and we need to make a way for them. And it's got to be a reasonable way. It's not reasonable for somebody to go an hour out to Winter Vegas and get $12, $13 an hour. That's just, you can't do that. So it makes more sense to use the state to pay for the food and ask the tribe to help for childcare. Or so it is a good question. Thank you for that question. And going back to thinking about how we're going to get it done, you know, and I believe there to be high paid people within the tribe that are getting paid good money in high positions that can figure this stuff out for us. And all it takes is one influential person. And it's three things that they look at you and they figure it out in 30 seconds. Does this person know what they're doing? Are they good at it? And do they care? And if you come across, you can influence our employees and make a movement and come and get these things done for our people. Because let's remind ourselves, we have programs, we have casino, we have all these things because we have needs for our people. That's why all of this is here. Thank you.
Of course, I would support a new daycare and expanding Educare any way we can to accommodate the kids that we have. Some kids are turned away. I think I look at our membership here, our tribal members, I think we all worked in a daycare at one time. I have. I've been with my spouse for 33 years, been married for a quarter of a century and more. I have 6 children. So I know the needs and the struggles. Yes, I would support more child care and, of course, expanding our education for our children.
Kind of been too serious up here, but you said childcare, and that kind of scares me, actually. I have twins, so I know how much it costs at one time to have twins in childcare and daycare. Obviously, we cannot make any decisions at this forum. We'd have to definitely look at the budget, you know, see if there's money available to like expand Educare or expand or maybe build another daycare. But I know at one time we did have Little Hill, and I don't recall, is it the other one? Is it Bear? Little Bear, yeah. And so we did have 2 daycares at one time, and I don't know how it goes with the Educare, how your children are, you know, they apply for it, get into that system, because when that got here, my children were already out of that phase. So maybe what we need to look at is opening up the restrictions. I don't know much about the Educare, so, but obviously we'd have to look at the numbers, see if that's something that can be panned out tribally, sacrifice for that for our children, obviously. But I do support Educare because it puts us, you know, a step ahead of most of the communities in the area. So, thank you.
right, for Educare, one of the things I'm looking at as I run for council is employing our people to help recover our people as a whole. And in doing that, we need to ensure that they have employment to get on their feet so we can move on, so they can become better citizens of our community, our tribe. And so with that, a lot of these people that could use employment for self-preservation purposes, that I believe that it would be good to expand Educare and Childcare, whatever we're looking at in that question. But in order to employ more of our people, we do need a bigger childcare service platform. And so I think that would be beneficial to not only our children, but our working adults that aren't employed right now. And so I'll say about that much for that. Thank you.
Ready? Okay. First of all, these are the students' questions, correct? Which students are here? Can you raise your hand? Okay. And your instructor? Somewhere. And your instructor? Okay, but you guys are here. Is your class bigger than this? This is it? Okay, that's good. I'm glad that you guys are all here. I want you guys to know that as an alumnus of this college, class of 2003, I attended this college with my oldest child being approximately 4 years old at the time. My two younger ones were as young as 6 months. So I totally and completely understand the motivation behind what it is to need childcare. Because what I also want to let you know, besides being a product of this college, is that I also worked full-time. I carried as many as 21 hours. I had a 40-hour-a-week job, and I had 3 small children that needed childcare. So I get it. I want you guys to know that in answering your question. Absolutely do I support it, but it comes back to me, how do we get that done? When the Educare process was brought forward to me in my first term, and it was brought forward by Amy LaPointe and the ladies that she worked with at the time, most of whom are still there, what they brought forward was an idea that was far-ranging, far-reaching, and has become what you see today. It was supposed to be, and it is, a step up for our youngest tribal members. Something better than what we were doing in the past. Not because what we were doing in the past was bad, but because we recognized we could do more. And those ladies in that operation and the people that worked with them brought that forward, and I supported it wholeheartedly, and I still do to this day. But how do we expand that? That takes money. And with that, that means that we have to have people around the table of our leadership who understand how to make it, how to create it, how to keep it, and most importantly, how to make sure it is sustainable beyond a political upheaval. Meaning that people at that table change constantly, but we need to make sure that we're putting something that is sustainable together. I'm more than willing to talk about this with you at length because I have extremely good ideas that want to push forward with this, but it's more than just talking about support, it's about how we get it done. Let's have that discussion.
I am for expanding the Educare, or we have I know of one person in the community who is a tribal member who is a licensed child care provider, even other options like that, as far as them having that service, and maybe building something in the community where they can be employed also. And my grandchildren too, some of them are there, some are not, you know, and it's like there's a long waiting list. So the other option I think too would be through Winnebagus. I know there's a lot of people working over there who have hard times finding childcare because of their hours and shifts that they work over there. So depending, like they're saying, money is the number one thing, to find the funding for it and to possibly build something at Winnebagus also for the employees. I think that would be good. So I would try to find that funding and work with the rest of the tribal council members to make it a reality. Thank you.
Educare, I got to be a part of that when it was created, and it was a very interesting process. One of the things that we decided to do was focus on Head Start and early Head Start funding. By doing that, it focused on the low income, the most needy, the ones that needed that jump start to get them ahead in their educational development. And at the time when we were discussing this, it was difficult because we have a community where there's some of our single parents or even our families that make good money. And I was worried that the parents that are working wouldn't be able to have childcare because they were working hard, taking care of their household, and pretty soon wouldn't be able to have childcare because our focus was going to be on low income. And we are currently at that point. A lot of our over-income parents, they don't get accepted into Educare. Educare does have a long waiting list. And one of the things that would need to happen is the highest waiting list is infants and toddlers. That would be the area where we'd need to focus and try to find funding. And we could look at the same resources that funded Educare. Educare was a $10 million project. The tribe did 5, the Buffett Foundation did 5, and that's how we got Educare. So with that, we would have to go look for the funding and focus on what we really truly needed. And we could expand, you know, if we found that funding. One of the other things that I'd like to see happen is our own tribal school. You know, I think we have enough people in our community that are becoming educated and becoming certified teachers and certified administrators that we open our own schools so our Educare kids can transfer over to an elementary school. You know, that's one of the things that I'd love to see. That's why I'm a teacher. You know, I wanted to get in there and actually see what it's like every day for our kids and see what the administrators have to do, see what it takes to build a school, you know, and that would be my focus is expanding Educare in the number of students, but also in a capacity where we can focus on elementary for our own kids, you know, where Educare kids can transfer over, because in other Educares, they're actually attached to elementary schools. They transfer right over into the elementary, and that helps them so that they don't get behind and, you know, they don't have to transfer to a whole new school. So that's my ideas.
Right now, we will be taking a 10-minute break.
These mics.
Check. Check mic. Low, low, low. Check, 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 check. Mic check. 1, 2. Check, mic check.
Is it working now? Can you hear? Oh, okay. We're gonna get started now. We'll bring the mic to you. Raise your hand if you have a question, and we'll bring the mic to you.
Hi, my name is Tanya Keller, and I've been going to a lot of the council meetings, much to some people's regret. But with some of my frustrations, one of them is when I ask a councilman a question, they'll sit there and look at you or look away. And you don't know what they're doing, what they're working on. And would you be open to submitting a monthly report to the people? Because otherwise, we don't know what you're doing. We don't know what you've accomplished or what you're working on. Thank you.
Was that a question or a comment? Okay. I believe that would be good, you know, because as a council member, you're a servant to the people. And as employees, when they go on training, whatever they do, they got to make a report. So I agree that council should have a monthly report. You're there all day, you're getting paid to sit there, so you should be accomplishing something every single day. So I agree with that. Because a lot of times they're in there and what are they doing? Sleeping? Sometimes they're sleeping. You know, they should be working and developing things for the people. We have a lot of people who are in need, so we should be up there working on that diligently every day. So I agree with that, Tanya.
I agree, and I believe if I'm reelected, I will keep a better, more documentation, and I am there a lot, and I hear everything. I'm not going to get into myself, but I agree, and also I believe we could easily go to a time clock. You know, our time does need to be accounted for, and that's across the board with all our entities, Winnevegas, Tribal Council, and HCI. I like to see everybody on a time clock. That brings accountability.
I agree with what was said, and I believe the transparency of a lot of the meetings that happen need to be brought out to public notice, and some of the things that are brought up, as in like, I don't know, whatever the tribe does, that letters get sent out with questionnaires, informational purposes, that those need to be opened and read, understood, and brought to a council member. And I would like to have that that looking away or that silence done away with, because we need to be accountable for what takes place down there at the council chambers. And there's a lot of things that, there are a few things that are confidential, but those are individual things, water, finances, personal finances, personal aid. Some of that might need to be confidential. But like, there are illegal acts that do take place down there. And I say that not only because I'm biased or prejudiced or anything like that, but even today we had a emergency thing done down there that should only be done when it's an emergency for 5 votes to put 2 people on the tribal council. That happened today. these people didn't make it past the preliminaries. But because of these 5 signatures, they were brought out into the, put out back on the ballot, which some of you students can look into that and see how that works in your class. That if we have 5,000 enrolled members, maybe a signature sheet of 2,600 people might push that, might be validated. But when it comes down to 5 people, that's not right. That's not legal. So go out into the community and ask about this, because there's a meeting coming tomorrow. And there's a lot of things that aren't televised. And if anyone finds us any information on this, I would advise you to come down to that meeting tomorrow. And so with that transparency that I'm talking about, I would like you guys to come down there and see for yourself. Always go to these tribal council meetings if you can, because right now the way it works, everybody in here that voted today, it was said your vote didn't count. And so with that transparency that was asked and that I'm telling you about, be mindful of that and ask questions of somebody, anybody that might know something about that. So with that, I'll say about that much. Thank you.
With accountability, Tanya, to answer your question, I guess with a little bit more breadth than just simply saying, yes, I support accountability, is I think what you're actually looking for, and if I'm mistaken, then please tell me so, but what you're looking for is the results of a plan. And right now, the tribe has no plan. Ask any one of the council members, where is the tribe's annual plan, and they will not be able to provide you anything. As someone who sits at that table currently, this is something that I've been asking for a number of years, but has not been successful in bringing forward, simply because that creates exactly what you're talking about, a level of accountability for those that get paid to sit there. As one of the people who does not get paid to sit there and will not be paid to sit there, I do not believe that we should be wasting our resources toward doing nothing. And so the plan is what I'm actually looking for, and that's what I would like us as a tribe and as an organization, as a community and as a people in general to come forward with. I still support the 5 prioritized areas that we established in my first term. I want to expand that to include what I believe are necessary areas, such as the healthcare issues that we face, meaning in its service and its provision for our tribal members. I want us to actually move forward in meaningful ways to do something in relation to what we know and what we can address in relation to the needs of our veterans. And then also community outreach. That's an example that I think we don't touch on enough, meaning that all of these things together, through communication, through education, through action, and then back to where I started, an actual plan is going to bring that forward, because without it, we're simply asking the repeated question again and again. And so with the minute that I have left, what everybody needs to understand is that when we make decisions, they should be decisions that benefit all of us, not just a select few. And because we have wrestled with that in the past, and because we have dealt with that in the past, how we move forward from that is by inclusion. In the planning process that I put forward, there are people who will speak of division. There will people who will say that it's only for us and not them. They create that type of environment. I am not one of them, because in each of the plans I put forward, it includes everyone, but I can't say the same for them.
If elected, my plan is to stay with Wildlife and Parks and maintain my duties, maintain my perspective. I think it's a valuable perspective to have, to be among the tribal employees. And I think it's something that will serve the council well. And to be in there and seeing how it works and seeing how it's not working That way we can really figure these things out. And Tanya, you're right. You know, we should speak up when we're there. That's why we step forward. And if we're not speaking up, that says to me that the decision was already made somewhere else. And that's out of order. Discussion and debate should be happening at the table. Hand out the information and let's discuss it and debate it where everybody can see. And if make sure, you know, a lot of things can be called out of order. You know, I've just recently started watching these council meetings, and, you know, just that last one, you know, a motion was put on a table and discussion continued that wasn't anything to do with that motion. And I said, let's discuss that motion that was put on the table. And just thinking about those things, how we can really make it fair and discuss and bring forth these plans. And we really need to talk up, speak our minds. You know, we're all here together, alive at the same time, and that's very special. And we all need to work together. And all the tribal organizations, tribal programs, casino, you know. And remember that we do this all for our people because we have a people. And that's very sacred. Thank you.
I think that accountability is something that every program needs, every business, every educational system. Accountability is what makes things happen. Holding people accountable for their jobs, the things that they do, is very important to any kind of success that you want in that business or program or school or whatever it may be. And to answer that question, I think council should get up and say, you know, I worked on this, this, and this. The progress was this, this, and this. For myself, I mean, I am going to continue teaching. Teaching is one of the hardest things that I think I've ever done. I mean, I've done a lot of things in my life, but to take on the challenge of reaching out to our children and trying to understand ways to build them up and create something that's great and wonderful, something that has somebody that has the strength to endure a lot of things that happen in our community. And there's a lot of days that I leave that school feeling like a failure. The good thing about teaching is that there's a new day. And I think that goes across the board for any position that you hold. There's always a new day, and there's always a chance to make a change. And if you don't take that chance of holding somebody accountable, then you're only going to get negative reactions. I've been put in positions where I've had to make people accountable, and if they couldn't be accountable, I had to let them go. And even though they were good people, you know, it's not their personality, it's not the relationship that you have with them. It's dealing with the job and how successful you want something to be, something, someone, some program, some tribe, some people, you know. That's the whole key to success is accountability. Thank you.
October 2002 is when I first had my first job with the tribe. That was the first time we had a report as well. Currently, I work for the CDFI here in town, and actually before I came here, I was doing my report end of the month. Accountability is a major part of any tribal organization. And I think that, Tanya, your question there, if you have a question for me or for any of the tribal council, we should answer it. And we should answer it as truthfully as we can. Like, this is the reason why we made this decision. You know, I've seen tribal council meetings in the past where those questions were asked and people just sat silent. You know, we're servants of the people. And we're your voice. And I think that we need to be accountable to the membership. You know, I mean, you know, you're accountable to your families, your finances, picking up your children every Friday, it's just a part of the week, and it should correlate to your job performance as well, So I will give you my monthly report if elected.
My question falls back with what Tanya was talking about. I have gone to the council meetings, and when I'm done, they all just look at me like, okay, sit down now. Not one of them said thank you or anything. Even a go to hell would have been all right, but they say nothing. And that makes me nervous. But another thing that falls in line with this is that 5 signature. I read some minutes back in August. There were 14 approved 5 signatures. Now, if you don't have time to sit there in that office, we've got to do something. Maybe you don't need to sit there. Maybe we can just run a council on 5 signatures, because that's what happened. And some of it dealt with money. There should have been some kind of discussion. There was nothing. So I hope whoever gets on the council will really take that into consideration. Thank you.
Just to respond to Ruby, I was there when you talked before the council, and what you said was really important for them to hear, about Winnevegas. And I think there should have been a little more discussion, a little more, input on their part. Because what you see is what the other, customers seen that too. So I think they should have maybe adjusted more. And one of the other things too is the Constitution. When you're on council and you take an oath to uphold that tribal Constitution, you have to do that. That's our word. That's what we go by. And lately, it's just been that Constitution's just been stomped in the ground, and they're not following these things. That 5 signature should never happen. That's only for very, emergencies. So they're misusing all these things in council. And we got one of them sitting here. Tony was one of them, and Kenny was the other one that they put back on the ballot. And so what happens to the rest of us that was on there and made the primary? Do they bump 2 of us off to put them on? That's not in the Constitution to do. So these things, you students need to check into that Constitution. And I know at one time classes were going down to the council, the council meetings, and you can see what's really happening there. The Constitution has to be followed. And if I get in, I'm following that Constitution. Because that's our people's voice. We're in there to serve the people. So that's something that I will stand up for my people. Thank you.
Check.
Ruby, I'm not sure if you actually asked a specific question, more brought forward a subject of discussion, which I believe needs to be held, and it needs to be held as publicly as possible. What I'm about to say is probably going to immediately offend quite a few people simply because they choose to be offended by it. But the reality is, ask yourself the question, and I ask this back to you, Ruby, why was there so many 5 signatures during the month of July? And the answer is because the funeral leave policy was being abused. That's what I mean. I know people are automatically going to be saying, Brian doesn't uphold our traditions. He thinks this and that. No, I don't. But in the special election, we came forward with a policy. We went back to the old days when a member of the council, or specifically the chair, was authorized to approach the family and asked them if we could continue. That's the policy we passed in 2015 that was not followed all the way through of July. That's the reason why you saw what you saw. A lot of people don't want to say that publicly because then they're going to be attacked, like I'm sure I'm going to be. But it isn't the fact that I'm diminishing our beliefs and our traditions, but instead trying to uphold what I believe is the necessity between the government and what we do as a culture, because there are differences, whether some people want to believe it or not. And when we have to conduct business, the council is already imbued with an ability to do that. And all the way through July of this year, you'll see that, and that's the reason why. We are so large as a tribe now that on average we are going to have one tribal member pass per week. Most people don't realize that. So how are we supposed to conduct business if we're not conducting business out of respect for the family? We pass policies such as the one we did in 2015 and we follow it. If the family says no, then we don't. But what I've experienced, because we did that during my swearing in, I personally asked members of that family if we could go forward, and they said yes, absolutely, sure, why would we not? But until we begin to have that kind of discussion, no part of that is going to change.
When it comes to something that comes on to the agenda and comes to the council, I believe it to be really important, and if the council can meet on it, then they should. And discussion and debate should be had, and the meeting should be held fair. And I don't think there's any need for issues to sit on the table for 6 months, a year, an entire term. Let's make the decisions that, if you have never heard it, hear it now. All the easy decisions have been made. There's nothing but hard decisions for us left. And we got to make those decisions. And if these issues sit around too long, I won't be opposed to making a motion saying, here's our deadline. After that, we shouldn't be getting paid anymore. So, and as far as this 5 signature ratification, emergencies, yes. In rare conditions, if time constraints, we can't have a meeting, but if we can, let's sit down and have a discussion and debate. And let's all speak up and talk. That's what needs to happen. Thank you.
I want to apologize to anybody that might take offense to anything I say, but if anybody's familiar with me, they've known me long enough to know that I'm going to say this on my mind. A year ago, this coming October, the sitting tribal council promised me that they would submit reports every month to let us know what committees they sat on, what were the activities of those committees. To this day, we haven't seen one thing in the wind. We haven't seen one thing posted. We haven't seen one thing done yet. So I don't have a lot of faith when I listen to people say I support it, or I this, or I that. You can support everything, but whether you do it or not is another question. And I don't want to point fingers at anybody, but I just want you to know that I made it part of the record because I wasn't getting any responses. I wrote 7 letters before. I finally went on it again. Tried to get on the agenda. They denied me one. I got on the agenda the last time, and they finally did that. And so anyway, with that, I want to know how many of your people have asked you?
Ready? Okay. I'm definitely one, Daphne, and to point out these things because it's not like me to say I, or me, despite how some people feel. Action is exactly what we did in the terms that I served. In the very first meeting that we had in the special election with the entire seated council, we moved an entire echelon of activities that needed to occur because of what we were facing at that time. That agenda was huge, and we stayed until 1 a.m. and we finished each and every issue, and they were decided. The funeral policy that I just mentioned was one of them. There were several others as well. The tribe's 401k was established in my first term. I brought that forward. The tribe's education department, which didn't exist, was brought forward in my first term as well. The tribe's communication department, in order to try to establish a means with which to give tribal members as much and any information as they needed, was established in that first period. Also, in the first term, as well as a special election, I had, as the treasurer of the tribe, a separate book which was kept in the chairman's office for any tribal member to come see, which contained the latest tribal financial report, where we were as far as our investment policy, and anything pertinent to what was up to date. I don't know what happened to that after I left. As a person of action, these are things that mean things to me, as well as several other things that we have not yet even begun to discuss. But it's hard to do when you have other people at the table, or you have people in the audience who tend to not believe in what we need to do overall, because then that's where you start to see the face of, what's in it for me? I'm not going to vote for you if you go this way. I've seen that happen. I've had that happen to me. I'm even going through it right now, and I'm fine with that, because to me, as a matter of personal integrity, you have to uphold the rules that we have, because if you don't, they mean nothing. And at the same time, that doesn't mean that you put paper over people. It means that you try to understand what people are actually bringing forward and try to help them find a solution. Making up lies and starting rumors like about our investment portfolio and how we do things in that way, that isn't the way to go forward, and that sure is not leadership. You have that here now. Those things need to be questioned, and people need to be taken to task on, okay, if we're going to replace something or something is bad, what are you going to do to make it better? Fix it. Because you can't just sit there and complain endlessly, because endless complaint is not leadership.
I apologize for not submitting any reports. You can come down there, and 90% of the time you'll find me down there. And I've only missed maybe 2 meetings these 3 years. I've heard I always say there's decades of service there at that table, and I looked up to that and try and learn from it. And I hear people say that, they talk about desk audits. A desk audit is come in and see what you're doing. See if your job is necessary. And I heard him say that, this tribe, we're working in a resort. And I myself, I say we're not on the assembly line. I say we're not at IBP, cutting heads off. We're not that busy. And I would be in full support of a desk audit across the board. Tribal Council, Winnebago Tribe, Winnevegas, HCI, for a desk audit to see how many positions that we really need and who does what. And go back, how old is NIGA, I always joke around to myself and try and put it out there, how I do it, the NIGA, the IGRA report. There's a lot of people been at it for over 25 years, I believe, who's been in that game, and they've made a lot of money. And I don't think people would want their names out there exactly. And some of those funds are supposed to go to the people, to the tribal members, per cap, and stimulus like that. So yeah, I would like to see that, a desk audit done for all our facilities. Who's working for who? And who really is that busy? I sure would. Thanks.
I came back from law enforcement training in January 2015, and soon after, they made me the security manager. And I was doing fine. I was learning the job. You know, when you get one of these jobs that first year, you're just kind of learning and getting a good perspective of it. And soon I was asked to apply for the Wildlife and Parks Director position. So I did. And in that interview, it's like, well, what do you really know about it? I was like, well, I hunted, and now, to tell you the truth, I don't really know a lot. But I feel really like it's a good time for me. I feel like really ambitious right now. And, you know, I think communication's a big thing, so I think I'm a leader. And so we came, you know, March of 2016, I came to Wildlife and Parks. And it had its the way it was run. So I watched it for a year, and I seen major changes that needed to happen with the management of our deer herd. You know, at that time, I didn't know how to. Somebody asked how many deer we have. I was like, I don't know. So I sought out training out in Pennsylvania how to count our deer. So I did, and since then we've grown our deer herd 3 times over, and that's really a huge resource for us. And we even have a plan of how many, if all the trucks were to stop, and if all the trains were to stop, and the planes were to stop, you know, how many deer can we take to sustain our herd? You know, how many can we feed? We know that, and we know how many deer out there. And even positions like Coley was saying, you know, I had to come forward to my higher up, and I said, you know what, it's hard to justify these positions, because they don't really have a lot to do. And that was a tough thing for me to do, but it was my job. So we did. You know, I eliminated 3 positions, and I said, this is what we need. And we made that. And when I came in, I was the only certified officer. And now we have 5 certified officers. And our budget was getting close to $500,000. And the budget that I submitted for this year is been cut 75% of that. And really looking at how we can run efficiently and what our intended purpose is. Because when we get in these jobs, we can get way out there and start thinking way out there. It's like, wait, let's come back and say, what are we supposed to be doing? And what do we need to do that? And let's stay right there. And, you know, the other thing is that, you know, animal control and the buffalo, we looked at the buffalo and nobody was doing nothing to buffalo, so we started to get them USDA inspected, and now we have a big walk-in freezer, and we plan on harvesting 15 buffalo this year and keeping it in that big walk-in freezer for our community. And it's really made me happy, because we can't even keep the buffalo meat anymore. The community is really using it now, and we have the same plans to do with the deer herd, to have deer meat on hand. So you know, these good ideas, but, you know, you're right, heavy action. Everybody has good ideas, but heavy action.
Action. I'm actually a casualty of action, so I was just looking at my monthly report from 2007. I think I have about 75 resolutions I actually submitted to this council. And then land buyback, a couple of different things, you know. And we're past that now. This has nothing to do with land, okay? This is about moving forward. And definitely, I said, I want to be the person that's there, moving us forward with, I mean, we're a team. That's the thing about it. There's 9 of us. This isn't a presidency where there's 1 person. There's 9. So what we have to do is work together, even if we have to yell around at that table, you know. I've seen that happen a couple of times too, but, you know, building relationships is something that I've done my whole life. It's a part of my profession. I don't know if you guys know this, but I'm a realtor as well. I also recruit nurses. So, I mean, I'm always out there, I'm meeting new people. I'm just trying to do that, and I think that's what we need to do here, is we need to all just talk together so that we can move forward and act for your regard. You know, we need to act for our people, for our land, our sovereignty. Our sovereignty is under attack every year from states, from the feds. One day, BIA might get a letter and say, you know what, you're terminated. What are we going to do? What can we do? It ain't going to be fighting amongst each other. That ain't going to move us forward. We have to come together, have a plan, 10-year plan, 20-year plan, buy our land back, you know, have homes available for our grandchildren. That's the thing about it. It's like we have to look to that future, and it's beyond 3 years. Let's think for the next 100 years. Action.
Well, okay, your question is about doing Daphne. Your question was referring to doing. I'm more of a doer than a talker. So when I do get jobs to do, I get it done. And I don't like to talk about myself like some people do. You know. I had to work with a lot of grants for the tribe, and starting from scratch. The money was there. Here you go. This is a program. This is what you got to build. So, okay, I did. I built those programs. But then after that grant ran out, the tribe didn't proceed with it. So a lot of those programs ain't here no more. Elder abuse prevention. Ho Chunk Hope is still here. Had a tobacco one. These kind of things. So I am a doer. Give me a task. You guys want something done for me? I'll do it. For my people. I love my people. A lot of times, you know, it's not the person that I don't like. It's the things that they had done. So I just wanted to say that. But I am a doer, and give me that job and I'll do it.
Well, I'll start with, you know, action is something that's necessary for anything to move forward. And I've never accomplished anything on my own. Never. I've always needed somebody, multiple people, one person, whatever it is. But action has always been a part of me and wanting to accomplish things. With Educare, for instance, when Educare was created, I was the education director, and I barely started, and they're like, okay, here's the money, you gotta, you know, get it going. And I was like, what? I've never done a building, even created a program. What do I do? Oh, well, you start with a resolution. Oh, I've never done that before. But in order to get this going and get, that building built, I had to take that step forward. I couldn't be afraid to put my words on this piece of paper to support what I wanted to create. And there was multiple people that helped me, there's to help me get there and help me understand, because there was so many things that I didn't understand that needed to be intact to creating something like Educare. We had our Childcare, we had our Head Start, but pulling those two programs together and trying to create one, that was a very difficult task. And I had to create a team where they would help me understand, to get where we wanted to be. So that is just one example that, action is necessary, and it's not just from you, because, like Tony said, it's not one person that does things, it's multiple people. You need multiple people that have expertise in the areas that you don't. For instance, writing, that resolution. I never done it before. And so Pat Madsen, she was there and she helped me do that. And so I leaned on her to help me accomplish the task that we needed to do to get that started. And so, for action to take place, it's more than one person. In anything that you do, you go to college, you need a sitter, you need this, you need that, you got a job, you need this, you need that. It's not just you. It's always somebody else. But action is a part of getting things done. And I feel I've been a part of a lot of things where action has taken place and things have gotten done. So, thank you.
There you go. All right, let's go. Action, that's, wow. In this case, I think it's, what we'd kind of be looking for would be teamwork and action put together. Everybody here said something good about that, about action, and even mentioned teamwork. And so teamwork is definitely something that we need to take into consideration. I mean, we all have divisions, personal, professional, however it may be, financial divisions, but we need to oversee that at the council, at that table, because our people depend on us. And also with that transparency, we need to incorporate that into that teamwork. And so as far as individual action goes, I don't think I could tell what I've done in less than 3 minutes now. So anyways, here we go. I traveled the world, served our people in 12 years of military service, served in 2 combat fronts. Went to Fort Hall, led their veterans organization into a good place, got them a building. Come back, became one of our ambassadors as a water protector in Standing Rock, and traveled the country doing that, still taking part in that, and being an ambassador for our people, to other indigenous tribes across Turtle Island here. And so also what I have done is I was the chairman to the powwow committee this past year, and I tried to take 50,000 off, or almost 75,000 off of last year's budget, and I couldn't reach that. We made it to about 50,000, cutting off from last year's budget, and so we didn't spend as much money and made just as much money back. And also being the chairman to the Drug and Alcohol Advisory Board, I said earlier that we are trying to streamline our recovery project for our people with almost $2 million monies. And so now we're just standing by for the transitional house to get built so we can replace our old halfway house and get our 3/4 house finished. And once that gets done, then we're going to be moving on to the DDU so we can take control of our entire process of recovery for our people. So I'll say about that much. And so, one more thing. And so being on the, if I make it, that's a lot of the things that I would be trying to integrate into that tribal council: transparency, teamwork, and action. So, thank you.
most important aspect of our Constitution. And the other part is you have spoken about how you would be if you were elected. What has prepared you to be on the council other than a desire to be on the council? And what is your experience if you are elected to a seat that has a title? If you're elected to be the treasurer, what has prepared you to do that? Thank you.
Hey, Jeannie, I caught most of your question. I've gone over the Constitution a couple of times. Obviously, the most important part to me is the land part. But I have to admit, I am not the best connoisseur of that document, but I will be. I will be for you, you know, and I'm sure that everybody will hold me accountable to that. Okay. In terms of what qualifies me, I wouldn't want the treasurer job or anything like that, but I worked as the CEO of the Winnebago Land Corporation. I've been here for about 18 years working in land, environmental, grants management. I really don't want to go over my resume because I'm here to work for the people. And in terms of leadership qualities, I've worked with a team all my life. Team of family, former baseball player. I love that part. But I'm just good at relationship building. And I think that I have the qualifications for this position. And I'm just hoping that you guys feel the same way come October. Thank you.
I'm still reading the dang Constitution. And like everything else, I got to read it 3 or 4 times, and it's basic. It's like life. It's basic. You know, do things right, act right. With like the laws. I've like 10 years of gaming experience. Well, practically my whole life has been at Vegas. Then I was on the gaming commission for 10 years, and they hired me, and they just kind of pointed me to a desk, and I sat down, and that was it. Kind of didn't know what to do. That's how our leadership was, and that's how things are. And 3 years ago, the same thing happened. So you know, I just start reading stuff, and you kind of learn from there. And what I've learned these past years, and you know, I tell these students, these children, you know, that live your life, and those of you that aren't from here, when you're done here and you go on to your homes, you know, and start working, and you work for your people, and you get something accomplished, and I want you to say, okay, what can I do next? What can I do more to help my people? And that myself, that's what I am trying to do. Can't do it by myself. And you make your workplace, make your community, your town, a place where you can walk by and get a hi and hello from everybody, you know, and it's really heartfelt. a smile and a hello. But I'm still learning, and I'm still learning with the housing stuff too, Jeannie, so thanks for helping me out in that part. So, I don't know. That's about it. Thanks.
Mine on the Constitution would be on the part of our culture and our traditions of our people. And I'm an expert at that. Because I was born, I was raised here. My parents were the old way. They taught us that. We lived it. And I teach my kids that. So I'm going to keep encouraging our tribal members to incorporate that in every aspect of what we do at the table, in the programs, and also to keep that Ho-Chunk Renaissance going. We need that. We have to have that. That's who we are inside. And when I was on the elder abuse thing, I had made up this thing, and it had our old people on there. Some of you knew them. There's your mom, and your aunt. And there were teachings of the grandparents' teachings and how we should be. I put that out there. And even had that big sign up there in Homer. You know, I believe strongly about our traditional ways. And to me, we are lacking that in our community these days. Even relationship. A lot of them don't even know how we're related. And like you, Gloria, I found a relationship. And I told you that. I told your sisters that. And that means a lot to me. So I could look at each and every one of you and I could tell you what families you come from, who your relatives are. I know these things. I studied it, I researched, I looked. And that's very, very important to me. So that is what I want to carry and encourage everyone that way. Thank you.
Okay, for what I have done for enroll in preparation to go into the table is leading men into combat and bringing them all back alive. Serving our people even afterwards, being an ambassador for our people. Even today, even in the future, there's things scheduled to be that same ambassador for the people. Grassroots projects are coming, not being paid. Those are still in the works. And so I'm still taking on that role as an ambassador. And as far as being over a financial department, I really hope that's not me because numbers aren't my strong point. But as far as anything goes as preparation to being at that table, that's what I'd say to that. Thank you.
When each council member is sworn in, he stands and says, "I swear to uphold our Constitution." So it's up here. And that's the playbook for us. And I think we've proven it quite well that the council, any council, is unable to change that Constitution because it's for all of us to decide. And me, myself, You talk about enrollment, land, the powers, all them things. I can't choose one because they're all powerful, because they're up there. And that's what we need to go by. So when I think about the Constitution, I think about all of our people and the core way that we need to go. It's a form of direct democracy. We all have a say on that. And we all decide it because that's the only way it could be decided. Now, I don't think the tribal council should ever be in control of our Constitution. That should stay with the people. One thing that I think about is that we are a people, but we also have a tribal government. And we have a federal government. So we have a lot of overlapping things. And they all need to be separated. You know, there needs to be them checks and balances there. Not one of them can have too much power, because we need to decide for all of our people. And I have some experience with Intertribal Buffalo Council. I sit on their board of directors, you know, and I really enjoyed it. You know, I wanted to talk about the hard things. And when I first came in, everybody told me, is like, no, that's for the big herds. You know, we don't do that. There was actually a resolution made saying that Winnebago tribe won't be a part of that anymore. But I came in with an open mind, and I talked with the big herd guys, and that feeling wasn't there. And I even made a motion to say, the way it was set up, the funding was set up, the top 7 tribes received half of the money. And the next tier received 30%, and the bottom tier, the tier that we're in, and a lot of tribes are in, they received 20% of the money. And I said, well, this system seems like a system to keep the big herds big and the small herds small. I said, we all have real needs here, and we should just give out money what we have, equally. And I don't think it needs to be competitive either. We all have real needs. Some of these smaller herds, these smaller managers, they don't have grant writers. You know, sad to say, we had to turn away some grants because they scored too low because the herd manager wrote it himself. And I said, he has real needs just like everybody else. We can't reach everybody, but let's do what we can. Thank you.
I would say the most important part for me would be the secretarial election piece that's in the Constitution. I think that giving the people the right and to giving them the power to decide outcomes for our tribe is probably the most important. And for myself, I got to witness that. I seen our tribal members remove 8 members of tribal council with their power. Like I said, I was a witness to that, but the tribal members that were there voiced their opinion. They got what they wanted, and the outcome was in their favor. So I've seen that power that the tribal members hold. I've seen the capabilities of our people, and to give our people the power to decide, you know, which way or which avenue our people are going to go, I think that's the most important. The experiences that I've seen while I was on council previously were things that I never thought I would. You know, when I got on council, I wanted to focus on education, but the things that were happening and things that were already in motion at that time, I didn't get to complete anything. So that's one of the areas is going to be my biggest focus is education and improving those avenues for our children, our teens, our elders, because we all need to be lifelong learners. We need to be constantly learning about things, having our minds grow. Once we stop, then it kind of stunts our growth as a person. So for me, you know, to get back on the council and be able to focus on those things that I wanted to previously but didn't get the opportunity to, that's what I would like to do if elected. I'd like to focus on the area of education and expand that with the strategic plan. You know, why does our tribal council have to be reactive instead of being more prepared? So I guess, that would be my biggest focus, is having a plan so we don't have to be reactive. We can be proactive and, foresee what's going to go on in the future, at least have a plan of action of how we can deal with different situations. So thank you.
Jeannie, I don't necessarily think that I have a favorite part of the Constitution other than the fact that it is a living document, and from my point of view, that means that it is something that is meant to evolve as the tribe evolves with it. And as what was said, it is the power of the people, and our people will always retain that power to amend it as necessary according to the needs that we have. I want to take a little bit of a different take. I do believe that there should be a resume process for the people asking for this job, simply because it is a very important job, and it's not something that should be handled with people who are unprepared. So to give you an example of that, my educational background is I graduated second in my class from Winnebago High School. I have an Associate of Arts degree from Little Priest Tribal College. I have a bachelor's degree from Wayne State College with a major in political science and a minor in social science. And I also have uncompleted master's work in public administration. As far as my work experience is concerned, I started as a dealer at Winnebago on January 3rd, 1993, and I've been involved with gaming ever since, except for a small period around 2004, I believe. So my gaming experience is over 25 years now. In that process, starting as a dealer, working my way through management, eventually transitioning over to being appointed to 2 terms as an actual member of the Gaming Commission, I served as secretary as well as vice chair of the Gaming Commission, leading us through the changes that were occurring in the federal law at that time, as well as several other things, including compact renegotiations, which occurred naturally within those time frames. My work experience is, for the last 15 years, I've been CEO of the Winnebago Gaming Development Corporation. We operate the Iron Horse and Native Star Casino, and we've been doing that successfully now for that period. Although we've only been open for 15 years, I've been involved with it for 16 because I was a member of the Gaming Commission who worked to establish these operations. Committee work, I was appointed to Ho-Chunk Board of Directors in 2003. I served a 3-year term. In 2006, I was not reappointed. I was reappointed in 2007 and served all the way up until the spring of last year. I think it's important for us to understand what capabilities the candidates have, because we deal with millions of dollars in various forms, in various ways, and from various places do they come. We have to have people that understand what they're looking at when they see financial reports, and we have to have people who have the ability to make decisions that benefit all of us and not just a few. I served on the Tribal Council from 2008 to 2011. The first 2 years I was the treasurer, the last year I was the vice chair. I served then in the special election, and I was elected to the treasurer at that point. My time is up, and I understand that we have quite a bit more discussion to have on this, but I do believe that the resume is important and that everybody should understand who they're hiring for these jobs.
Anyway, in the beginning of the forum, the people you talked about banishing, every way they bring money in here, they gotta eat and talk and water. By figure. And the big picture is, we still have old council members who just off their tribe. And they're still here looking us out for, eating at the seniors. And, we're probably getting $50 over in Vegas yet. And, medical. I don't see why they should be getting, why they shouldn't be banished for ripping us off.
grandkids, their kids. They also suffer from power plants and things. I don't hear nothing about them. I don't hear nothing about them paying anything back anyway. As far as I'm concerned, it's still a thief in an house. And I still see people having to go through the thing. Personally, I don't acknowledge them at all.
Hello? With Ho-Chunk being the economic development arm for the Winnebago Tribe of Nebraska, what is your stance on Ho-Chunk Inc.?
I'll take that as a good segue from where I ended. Being a part of the board of directors for 14 years, not necessarily consecutively, but overall, I was part of and witness to one of the greatest transitions in Indian country business in all time. Meaning that we went from a point where our tribal members were literally picketing for a per cap that was supposed to come from the council and not Ho-Chunk Inc., to having the most successful periods as far as financial and economic generation that were ever experienced in the company's history. And being a part of that, and then also leading it at the end of that term, serving as the chairman of the board of directors for, I believe, the last 3 years, I'm pretty proud of what we were able to accomplish together. Now, the executive team of Ho-Chunk Inc. obviously leads what we do on a day-to-day basis as far as the business is concerned. But the board of directors played a very important role, because what we were supposed to be able to do, and what we did very successfully, was manage the transitions. Because as you may be aware, but most people may not, there were several federal actions that took huge impacts on what we did in our business, most notably the tobacco raid that occurred a couple years back. When we are able to weather that kind of storm, when we are able to take a hit that hard and still able to produce the amount of revenue that we did, because what most tribal members don't realize is that the kids' clothing allowance were funded from HCI's dividends. When we were still able to do that, despite losing what I believe was $40 million in revenue, I think we're doing something correct. So my stance overall is quite easy to say that I stand behind it more than 100%. I've seen the changes that it's created, most notably, and the one I like to point out specifically, is the dignity that is created when a family owns their own home. That is something that I'm very, very proud to be a part of. And while there are many people involved in that process, especially in the building and the establishment, because it isn't simply like, oh, hi, let's build a house. There's a lot of work that goes into it. Moving those things forward, helping us reach the goals of housing for our tribal members, providing the very necessary jobs that are always being talked about, but very little gets done except for with our company, then those are the things that I'm happy to support. How much time do we have? 25 seconds? So overall, if there's something more in detail that you want to talk about with that, then let's have that conversation, but it can't be said enough. I stand behind it 100%.
I support HCI. I support what they're doing. You see, everybody witness what they're doing. But like I said before, when you do a job and when you're done, you say, what else can you do? What can we do more for our people? Look at our needs. Look at their needs. What do they want? And try and accommodate that. That's very hard to do. We have very needy people out there yet. We can't turn away from them. It is very successful. It put us on the map. I do support it, but again, I always say, what else can we do? What more can we do for our people, for everybody, across the board?
as I'm sure everybody knows, I used to work for Whole Chunk Inc. With Whole Chunk Farms, and I've been around, coming down every day since 2002. And I remember when that farm field out there was owned by, I think it was Mayberry's actually. And then we bought that property. And then all of a sudden, streets started going in, infrastructure, all those things happened because of, Whole Chunk Inc., whole HCCDC, writing grants. But impact, there's definitely impact here. I remember stopping over at my caucus house for lunch one day, and here there was 4 mattresses up against the wall, 2002. Now that isn't happening. There's apartment complexes, 2 of them. There's houses. There's opportunities to move on and get your own home. Home ownership is tremendous here now. Imagine that in 2002. How many people would have had to move north if we didn't have those? Whole Chunk Inc., it's a trailblazer. Winnebago Tribe is a trailblazer for allowing that entity to be formed. And so I'm appreciative of Whole Chunk, and I do fully support them. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
During my travels for my jobs, the animal control and the buffalo and wildlife, we come into contact with people from other tribes, and the way they talk about Winnebago is it makes me very proud. And Winnebago they are seen as a beacon in Indian country. How things can happen, and just seeing how Winnebago has changed in my adulthood. I'm 37, just in my adulthood, seeing how it changes. And it's really, we talk about people, the quality of life in our community. And when people from other tribes come to Winnebago, they say, wow, it's nice here. It's beautiful. And they see all the buildings and things going up. And I see it progressing, and I see it beginning to reach more of our people. I would like to see that. Right now, the home ownership is awesome, the opportunities. But at the same time, I think it only hits on just a small percentage of our tribe. If we can hit on the other income levels, figure out a way for them to own homes too. And just thinking about all the unique ideas that are coming forward and using all the tribal advantages. And I see Ho Chung Inc. as it's a corporation, and it has its board, and the tribe is the tribe, and it has its council, and they're 2 separate things. And I believe, that I want them to succeed, but at the same time, the tribe has its issues too. So I see them as separate things, the way it should be. Thank you.
Just like I've been saying all evening, that we need to work together, and that still needs to continue. When it was created, it was an entity of the tribe to help the tribe, help us. But there's some things that we can't deny. We have a lot of boarded up houses. Our elderly home is still burned up, nothing done on that. A lot of people don't have water here or electricity. But yet we're clearing land on the north side of our village. That's just a fact. I'm not the only one that can see it. Everybody in here can see that. So how useful is HCI right now? I mean, it was good 20 years ago. It was a good thought. We had the same management in there for over 20 years. Here we are. We're still with empty houses that are boarded up for over a year, 2 years. Our elderly home still hasn't been fixed. A lot of our tribal houses still need to be fixed. A lot of our elders need aid. I believe that we should still work with HCI, give them the benefit of the doubt. I do believe maybe some management positions should change. We're changing everything else in our tribal community except for that leadership over there. I think we need to take a different approach to that. We need something better for our people. I don't know how long we can go like this. When there's people that are influenced by this entity for us to give away our rights. Knowingly giving away our rights. I don't know how this is going to go. I know what I see. But for leading our people, you don't have to have a college education. I find that offensive to all our old chiefs, our warriors, and our women that got us here to where we are today. So with that, I'll say about that much. Thank you. I believe we should be working together to be with or against someone.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't understand your response because HCI pays dividends to the tribe. Now, how would they function without those dividends at all if we change it when it fails? I guess that's where I don't know what the thought process is and I want to understand it.
That's beyond my financial control as well. I don't know the numbers. I just know what I see. Over 20 years, I think a lot of us get the understanding of where it was going, what it's for. We're clearing land north of town, but we can't fix what we have today, or what was built. Well, I still see evolution taking place today. There's things that have happened since the creation of that entity. And that's not only through profession, but personal. Change has come and it's gone and it's still here. But we still can't deny what needs to be done. And to get to where we need to be at the table and to serve the people, we need to have a different approach with new people and to hopefully make a good change. All right, thank you.
Okay, my name is Desiree Kitchion, and I have a question, a comment and a question going back to one of the first question of the students, and that's our drug problem. We all know we have a drug problem here, and I even heard somebody say heroin, like really heroin in Winnebago? Like, we got to do something. Everybody knows who they are in town. I'm talking about the dealers. They walk around with backpacks. I'm pretty sure they're not school books in those backpacks. I live, most of you know where I live. We call that Meth Alley. We see them walking up and down that alley with their backpacks. Nothing's being done about it. And the chief of police said, I had a concern about somebody, and he's like, oh yeah, he's really a bad user. You know, they all know, the cops know, we all know. We had some good answers up there today. Talked about education, treatment, you know, more police, detectives, you know, that's all good. And I know Darla touched on the tribal code. That's what we need to do, is talk about the tribal code. We're a sovereign nation, we can do what we want. So my question is, if elected, are you gonna make our drug problem a priority?
Yes, yes, Desiree. That goes to, you can't blame our chief of police. He's BIA, but he's under people too, and BIA is under the Department of Justice, and they just ain't giving us the money. Like when we took over that hospital, Aberdeen, they were keeping half the block of cheese, and we was only getting a quarter of it. Now hopefully we're getting all of it. We need officers. We need 2 or 3 officers per shift. We do, and we don't have that. And we gotta, I don't know, we gotta write letters to the Department of Justice. Yeah. Yeah, it's okay. But yeah, it's that's something I'd really like to tackle, is our law enforcement. We need officers out here in the streets, out, patrolling, 2 or 3, 2 at least. And we don't have that. And that's something that comes with funding. We need more funding. And that's my concern, yes, And another, with housing, that's something too. I want to, if reelected, I want the tribe to start with this housing problem. We need to build more houses. And my thoughts with HCI, and the Winnebago tribe, make it easier for us to get houses. How many of you would like it a lot easier to get houses? These rent-to-own houses that some people live in. We need that. We need more of those. Believe me, we do.
put the kibosh on everything. They put a moratorium on the men's code. And they just lifted that a few weeks ago. But now everybody's talking. Because we might get there again and have the gun pulled out from under us. And so it's not like nobody's addressing the problem. It's just that if you go down to the council, you'll see them just sitting at the table. No one else in there. Just them. Maybe Sonia. Maybe you and I.
Okay, we have to wrap it up. So
So then, okay, but when you're sitting there,
everyone gets a minute.
sitting there, and you make an appearance, they're liable to pay attention.
Yeah.
So that emboldens them to have an empty room. Nobody will push back on that. So go. That's what we spent 6 months writing articles in the paper. Go to the meeting. No one did. No one did. So I say that now again. Go to the tribal council meeting. Don't watch it on live stream. You really cannot make it in person. It's your physical presence in that chamber that makes the difference. Thank you.
Okay, so for my part on answering Desiree's, I would like to see that code push through. Like with the elder abuse one, we had a multidisciplinary team that we gathered along with Danelle, and we had that code. And so it's enacted in our tribal court down there. So I would like to see that happen, and I would push for that because it is needed. I see that severity of that in our communities. So I would push for it.
Having the ability to change our tribal code is powerful. Some of these guys that I work with, they work for the state, county, and all that. They just have to go through the motions. So you're right, we should start utilizing that power and really figuring out what we need. What does the officer need to get that probable cause? And I have used the code. We put a curfew on the river. You know, we was having a lot of littering and drunk driving and people getting stuck down there. So we put a curfew on the river. And the way we did that is we didn't even change the code. It's in the code that the Wildlife Commission can shut down any area for purposes of conservation. And I asked them to put it on an agenda. I said, shut down the whole river for us from dusk till dawn. Shut it down for us. And then when we go down there and we see somebody, we pull them over. We don't need probable cause. We pull them over and then we could be there. Legally present. You need to become legally present to see that stuff. So we made that for our officers for that to happen. And another thing is, one of our prosecutors threw out one of our cases that happened at the river. And he said, you can't do that because you're a conservation officer. You're not a police officer. And I reviewed the code, and the code gave us that power. We're cross-deputized as police officers. So there's another disconnect there. So the prosecutors need to be on board with the police officers, and that's not happening. So when this police officer does all this work, slides it over to the prosecutor to knock it out of the park, and that doesn't happen, that officer's not going to do that next time. You know, that happened to me. I wrote a ticket to somebody for their dog, and they came up and they said, and it happened again. I wrote him another ticket, and they said, well, what are you going to do? He said, well, I'm just not going to pay it. I said, oh, okay. And I said, why not? He said, because the prosecutor told me I don't have to worry about it. I said, okay. And he said, well, what should I say in court if I go? I don't know, just tell him he said that, I guess. So there's that big disconnect there. So we all need to be connected, and even housing. Doing inspections, there's a no dog order for each of the housings. There's another way to be legally present right there. So if our police officers say there's a dog over there, you can go over there and take it, and we can get in the house and look in there and be legally present. So there's ways, and we can change the code, like you said. That's the powerful part. We can do that, and there's a lot of communities that don't have that power.
Give it back to the Bureau of Inland Affairs. No one's ever heard of that before. That was crazy. So I hope we get it back. And because of the way it sets now, I can't remember what year that was. That was what, 3-4 years ago. I'm still hanging in limbo because BIA kept scraping up my land. And I would have never known about it had we if we did not have land management. So I think that's very important to have land management and the tribe take care of it.
There's a little bit of confusion there, Ruby. Land management 638 program was actually, those functions were turned over to the land corporation, okay? As it stands now, there is a 638 program, and they operate out in the BIA office. And so they're doing a lot of capacity building. I don't know how that's going to actually affect the Winnebago Land Corp, because the Land Corporation is still alive. There's John's talked about it, he's on a board, Coley's on the board, and Thelma's on the board, but I don't know what actions they're doing, honestly. There isn't much land actions. Yeah, there isn't much land action. I went to one meeting and there was nothing that involved land at all. So I know all the land sales are actually going through the 638 program. But yeah, there needs to be something straightened out because there's just too many cooks in the kitchen. So I know that the BIA wants to, that's their trust responsibility to you as a landowner. We tried to have that same trust responsibility at the Land Corporation, and we got shut down, And you're well aware of the trespass issues there, and there's some other issues. And as a landowner myself, I would love to see this straightened out. There's probably 5 cases of trespass that I know of alone, and we need action. And so, what I'm going to do, if I get elected, I'm going to work with the tribal council, educate them on what happened with land management, have land management take that role, and actually investigate those issues. Because they need to be. Because you're a landowner, I'm a landowner. Somebody has to stick up for all of our people. And so that's kind of my stance. I stand up for the landowners and for the people. And I said, I'm a victim of action, so. Yeah, they're under a 638 program. Yep. But all the things that we did, the corporation, I'm not sure who's taking those on with the organic management. I don't know if it was just dropped. I have no idea. So. I'll go out there with you. Anybody, if you have an issue with your land, I will walk out to the BIA with you. Thank you.
So the Land Management Corporation is hasn't been changed at all. It's still in place. It's exactly the way it is. I was put on the board of directors, and for the first 2 meetings, it was on the agenda to dissolve the corporation, and there was no motions or seconds. So it does have support on the board, and I think, and there's opportunities are still there. You know, if you guys know about the Iowa land, the tribe invested $2 million in approximately 1,200 acres of Iowa land. Now that land has paid itself over and over again, and now it's worth $9 million. So the process is there to do that. But I think what happened was that a lot of relationships need to be made. I think you'd be surprised how far you get by just getting along with people and forming those good relationships. And one of those good relationships does need to be with the BIA and good relationships with the council. Now, maybe you do know what you're doing, or maybe you, like those 3 things that I talked about, you come across that you know what you're doing, you're good at it, and you care. And then you can make it that far. So being inspirational, I think it's still there, and I think it's still going to happen. But, you know, we need to retool it and go back at it again. It's still there. And dissolving it was on the agenda twice, and it didn't happen.
So then, is the Land Management Corporation still intending to do a second round of buyback?
That opportunity has passed.
Yeah, see, that's what, I mean, and that was the crazy part of it, because a lot of people that have those fractionated didn't find out about it until the tribal council dissolved the other corporation, or took that responsibility back and gave it back to the BIA, so what happens to those people?
Yeah, I thought a campaign, a better campaign could have been run, more informational and getting people, you know, making known that that money was available.
The Land Corporation purchased 70 acres of land out west, out by Thurston. We got 70 acres of our land back. Like you said, it's fractionated. For those people with fractionated land, you can go out to the BIA, and there's ILCA. ILCA money is available to purchase. There's $2 million left. Encourage you to go out there, and if you want to gather all your land up and sell it. There's no documents that there was going to ever be, or a second round of buyback got blown or denied.
Yeah, there was. I looked at the documentation. Go online and you look at it. All you have to do is research it, that there will be a second round of buyback.
For certain tribes. We can. I don't know. I don't think so. I mean, everybody's free to come down and look at the. That's why our records. Yeah. No.
I mean, I know what I read because I looked at it. And from my around the same state, I just kind of continued with it.
Okay.
There was going to be a second round. There's a letter from the land buyback. The tribe actually made a plan about acquisition, and we invested the $1.5 million that the Winnebago Land Corporation has, and they were going to review it and possibly have a second round. I have that one.
Good evening. Hinikaragiwina chashep ska minga hingairena chashep kiki courage. And I'd like to ask the elders to please excuse me. I understand that the tribe has a lot of business going on, like Ho Chunk Inc., Winna Vegas, and there's 2 other casinos that I was wondering about that I don't really hear too much about. And I understand that Brian is in charge of the Native Star and Iron Horse Casino. And my question was, I just want to know how much did the 2 Nebraska casinos, Native Star and Iron Horse, bring in annually? And how much did the tribe receive? And if you give a monthly report to TC? And that was my question.
First of all, I'm not running for CEO of the Gaming Development Corporation, so the questions toward one of the operations can actually be better answered by the board members. Am I on my own board? No. Again, those are questions that can be posed to the members of that board. That would probably be a question for those TC members. I wasn't on the TC at that point. No, you don't want to listen to the answer I'm giving you. I wasn't on that council, so how can I answer that question? And I've given you the answer. I'm not aware of such requests, but at the same time, if there were such things, then the board members can answer those.
So I guess that's just my question. So to ask who again?
The members of the board.
Which are who? Can you please give me that, since it seems like you have a lot of information? Can you give me the names of the members so I can ask?
The council representatives are Kenny Mallory and Coley Brown, and the other 3 members are Janet Bird, Victor Bird, and Caroline Frenchman. Excuse me, Bassett.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to thank Little Priest and the students. I really liked your questions. You know, it really sparks things in me. And to the candidates that have stepped forward, you know, I wanted to say a short prayer, and for all of us and for everybody on council. You know, they take on a lot. They take on all of our people's problems, all of our people's hardships, and so I wanted to say that much, you know, and if you guys could bear along with me. Aho, toka. Nigitewe, wahanakshana nigitewe washanaguin. Bless us, bless all of us, toka. And watch over our leaders as they take on our people's hardships. And give them blessings when they think of all of us. And hold them accountable when they don't. And watch over our children, Toka. See to it that they are safe. And watch over our mothers and our fathers. grandmothers and grandfathers, Choco, the way you have connected it for us. You watch over me, Choco, and my family as we enter this together. And do that for all of us, Choco. Do it for all of these members standing up here and the ones that are at the table now. And let us not work against each other, but with each other, Choco. And let us see clear. And watch over our elders, Choco. Let us reach them and know their needs and fulfill those needs. I want good for all of us. From the youngest to the oldest. Watch over all of us, I hope.
I want to thank everybody for coming and all those that are watching. That's it. Thanks. Have a good night.
Why were you, did you go there or? Oh, did I? I'm sorry, when I'm with my kids, I'm trying to.